So all tissues in your body have an amount of load or force they could take before you break them. So if you imagine that ligament under my finger there, if I bend that back far enough, I'll be able to snap it.
Yeah.
Okay. Now if you grab hold of your own finger and then you bend that backwards, keep going a bit further, how do you know not to break it?
You feel stretch on the...
Okay, if you're only feeling stretch, you can go harder.
Then the pain comes in.
Okay, so you can stop there. So yeah, stretch tends to come on a bit earlier in the process. So it says to protect, but not quite as loudly as pain. Now, did you just injure your finger?
No.
Good.
That's fine.
And that's the beauty of pain, is it is an alarm system. So it comes on before we've injured ourselves, because if it only told us afterwards, it wouldn't be very helpful, because we'd be going around harming ourselves all the time. Okay? It doesn't mean though that that is always effective. I could be diving for a cricket ball and I catch my finger in the divot in the ground and it moves faster or stronger than I can react to that pain. And if that happens, I will disrupt that ligament. Oops, I wanted a different colour there. I'll disrupt that ligament and it will be less strong, so less able to take load whilst I wait for it to heal.
Yeah, okay.
Okay? Now what my system will likely do at that point in time is it will become more protective. Now that'll happen through a range of mechanisms. It might be through there being inflammation that makes all of my senses more sensitive than they were before, but also it will be due to how dangerous or damaged it feels. Now, if I've just cut my finger, say if I'm slicing onions, I get really good information about how bad that disruption is. I can see if I can see the bone, it's a big flap of skin, lots of blood. But if it's inside my finger, or particularly inside my back, it's really hard. And so what my system is going to have to do is it's going to have to make a prediction. Okay, now, at that point in time, I could hang out down here, and that is super safe. If I only load below that threshold where I feel pain, there's no way that I will damage that tissue any further. But there's all sorts of stuff in here that would normally add value to my life. And that might be sore, but is actually safe. Okay? So I could say, all right then, well Ben tells me the pain's all in my head, which I hope I haven't said. And at that point in time, what's going to happen is the system say, hey, I told you to look after yourself, I told you a bit louder, and now I'm having to yell at you. And actually, I'm going to yell at you for a few days so that you know better next time. And it looks like you're a slow learner, so I'm going to protect you a little bit further going forwards. So that you still won't have actually managed to damage those tissues. It's quite hard to harm yourself, but it will feel like you have. And because you then won't feel like doing anything for days afterwards, it's not a very efficient process. So a different option is that it is invariably safe to do stuff that hurts a bit. And then you can progressively do more over time. And what that does is it teaches the system that it's not as bad as what it was predicting. And so things that were previously sore become okay. Make sense?
It does.
So what we want with that though is we want a framework to try and hopefully prevent us from flaring up.
So you want to get the right degree of load that it pushes the boundary a bit but doesn't cause a big flare up.
Exactly. And often what we find with this is that actually the amount of pain you're feeling whilst you're doing the loading activity isn't as good a predictor as to whether or not you're overloading for what the system's ready for as much as what you feel afterwards. And so how we can remember that is that hangovers are informative. So in the same way that when people are drinking, they often don't know if they've had too much whilst they're drinking. The next day they have a really good idea. The same thing with this. So if after you have increased the load, your pain is worse for, if it's less than 2 hours, that's okay. And so you can just keep going with that. If it's more than 4 hours, it's still okay, but maybe you want to just ease off a little bit next time because you might be nudging that flare-up line.
Yeah.
Okay. If it's more than a day, well, that's likely a flare. So it doesn't mean what you're doing was the wrong thing, but it means you might have done more than what the system was ready for. And so you'll want to give it a chance to settle, and then maybe next time start a quarter less so that you can then build up more slowly from there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So that just gives you then the opportunity for you to go away and, with particular activities, test where you're at and progress that over time.
Okay. So yeah, that framework to see, well, using the hours as the main scale of that rather than the degree of pain response initially after the activity.
Exactly, but start wise, so don't make your eyes water the first time you try. But there are certainly occasions where people can make their eyes water without having pain for very long afterwards. And so you can test over time if things are settling really quickly afterwards of pushing further into that discomfort.
Yeah, okay.
Perfect. I will give you that.
Thank you.